Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD.
Hello and welcome to Midday Prime. Over the next 1 hour, we'll bring you all the stories and updates from India and the world. We will update you about the happenings in the world of business and sports, and we'll get you some interesting stories that are making headlines. Our top focus will be on the preparedness for Cyclone Tauktae, likely to make landfall tonight. But first up, the big news at this hour. Cyclone Tauktae turns into extremely severe cyclonic storm. Cyclonic storm likely to hit Gujarat coast this evening and cross Gujarat coast between Porbandar and Mahuwa in Bhavnagar district tonight. Red alert issued in Diu and Gujarat. In view of cyclonic storm Tauktae, rescue and relief teams of NDRF, Army, Navy, Coast Guard along with ships, aircraft and various states agencies deployed to minimize the damage. BMC cancels vaccination drive in Mumbai today. Mumbai airport operations closed as a precaution today. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan jointly released the first batch of India's indigenous anti-COVID drug 2DG via video conferencing. The drug has been developed by DRDO's Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's laboratories. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan presides over the 26th Group of Ministers meeting on COVID-19 situations. As vaccination drive is largely effective, stresses that the difference in new cases in the past 24 hours and those who've recovered in the last 24 hours is now down to almost 1 lakh. Recoveries outnumber daily new COVID-19 cases yet again. Daily new COVID cases less than 3 lakh after 26 days in the country. Weekly positivity rate dips to 18.17% with more than 15.73 lakh tests done in the last 24 hours. CBI launches parallel raids and arrests Trinamool Congress ministers Firhad Hakim, Subrata Mukherjee, MLA Madan Mitra and former Mayor Sovan Chatterjee in its probe in Narda Sting case. Agency to submit the charge sheet and produce them before a local court shortly. India expresses strong condemnation of all acts of violence at the UNSC open debate on the situation in Middle East. India urges immediate de-escalation, reiterates support to just Palestinian cause and commitment to two-state solution. And in sports, in tennis, Rafael Nadal clinches his 10th Italian Open title. Nadal defeats world number 1 Novak Djokovic in 3-set battle in Rome. And now let's begin the show with the big story that we are tracking at this hour. The cyclonic storm Tauktae has further intensified into an extremely severe cyclonic storm with a ragged eye. As per the latest satellite observation by INSAT 3D at 10:30 this morning, the extremely severe cyclonic storm Tauktae was near 19.2 degrees north and 71.5 degrees east at 11:30 hours of today. Also, the cyclonic storm Tauktae is very likely to move north-northwestwards and reach Gujarat coast this evening and cross Gujarat coast between Porbandar and Mahuwa, which is in Bhavnagar district, between 8 and 11 p.m. tonight. Also, rescue and relief teams of the NDRF, Army, Navy, Coast Guard along with ships, aircraft and various state agencies have been deployed to minimize the damage. Maharashtra too was bracing for the storm's impact with heavy to very heavy rains at isolated places in North Konkan, Mumbai, Thane and Palghar, and extremely heavy rainfall in Raigad. Flash flood threat has been issued over suburban Mumbai, Thane, Raigad, Palghar and Ratnagiri districts. Moderate to high threat observed over some watersheds and neighborhoods of Ratnagiri district of Konkan and Goa subdivision. With the approach of the impending cyclone Taukte, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport had closed all flight operations from 11 to 2 in the afternoon as a precaution. Also, the airport has so far witnessed 3 diversions. Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray is closely monitoring the cyclone situation in the state. He took a review meeting of the situation in the coastal districts from the Chief Secretary as well as the Relief and Rehabilitation Secretary. So far, 12,420 citizens were relocated to safer places from Ratnagiri, Sindhudurg and Raigad districts have been evacuated to safer places. 3,896 people from Ratnagiri district, 144 persons from Sindhudurg district and 8,380 persons from Raigad district have been evacuated to safer places. Mumbai, Thane and Palghar districts are on orange alert while Raigad district is on red alert. The concerned district and state administration has made all possible preparations for rescue and relief work of the citizens. In line with the warning against the cyclone, Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation has cancelled the vaccination drive at all places today. The 3-day vaccination walk-in drive of BMC shall now commence on Tuesday and will last till Thursday. Continuing with the preparation for Cyclone Taukte, the Indian Air Force on Sunday deployed 2 C-130J and 1 AN-32 aircraft for transportation of 167 personnel and 16.5 tons of load of NDRF from Kolkata to Ahmedabad. A C-130J and 2 AN-32 aircraft carried 121 NDRF personnel and 11.6 tons of load from Vijayawada to Ahmedabad for the same purpose. Also, 2 C-130J aircraft transported 110 personnel and 15 tons of cargo for NDRF from Pune to Ahmedabad. Our correspondents are joining us now with the latest updates. Shishir joins us from Mumbai and Tapas is joining us from Delhi. Tapas, I'll come to you now for the overall picture. What is the categorization of the storm as we speak? What is its trajectory? When is it likely to make landfall?
Category has been changed from very severe to extremely severe category, which means that the wind speed along with the gale speed of the cyclone that we are talking about has increased. The second and important point that the IMD has issued red alert to Diu as well as for Gujarat, where it is expected by 8 o'clock in the night to around 11:30 or till midnight. This particular cyclone landfall will start to take place in the coastal city of and in near about Porbandar and Mahua place, where Ahmednagar district is in between that particular area. And the other part that is very much important is that currently it is somewhere in the region of 145 kilometers Mumbai, west of Mumbai, and it is 180 kilometers of southeast of Diu. And it is expected that the wind speed and as well as the rainfall activity over South Gujarat along with the Saurashtra region, the Andaman and Nicobar region will pick up. In fact, it is expected heavy to very heavy rainfall activity over these particular areas. In fact, there is a warning has also been issued to Gujarat. Some of the places, for instance, the places in Dwarka, Saurashtra, Jamnagar, Porbandar, all these areas. In fact, some parts of Ahmedabad also will be impacted because of that. And the gale speed and the wind speed is expected to be in the region of 180 km per hour. What we have been also told that as of now, massive rainfall activity is taking place in Mumbai and near about areas, and the flash flood warning has also been issued because remember we have seen earlier also that Mumbai, whenever it has seen massive rainfall activity, the roads get clogged, and there is a chance that that rainfall activity will have a major bearing on the
right. Tapas, since you are referring to the situation in Mumbai, there's Shishir who's joining us from Mumbai. Shishir, you're wearing a raincoat. It is raining there. One can see. What is the situation as of now, and what are the preparations going forward?
Well, absolutely, Manmohan, if you look at the current condition in Mumbai, it's absolutely gusty winds here, and we've also seen incessant rainfall since morning, particularly the coastal region of Maharashtra, including Mumbai, Thane, Palghar, Raigad, Ratnagiri, and Sindhudurga district. These are the places since yesterday have witnessed incessant rainfall. Currently, I want to show you, this is the skyline of Mumbai, as we could not stand on the road because of the gusty winds here. At the same time, many trees have been uprooted, and that's the reason it's become quite dangerous to stand on the road, and that's why even we are telling people that if it is not necessary, not move out from their houses. Even that's what the state authority and the Mumbai Municipal Corporation have alerted people. Well, this kind of gusty winds and the rains that Mumbaikar is witnessing since morning here, and will continue for the next few more hours, as we can see that cyclone Taukte is now moving towards the north and northwest direction here. But this kind of situation will remain for the next few hours in Mumbai. Well, as far as the transportation in Mumbai is concerned, the flights have been suspended till 2 o'clock because of the low visibility at the runway at Mumbai Chhatrapati International terminals here. As far as the train is concerned, the train services are running, but they are quite late. It's not been suspended yet, but they are quite late here.
Fair enough.
Because of this kind of weather, we have seen that quite less people on the road here. Well, obviously we couldn't stand on the road. That's why we took a shelter of a building, and we're trying to show the skyline of Mumbai, at this point in time. And this kind of situation will continue for the next few hours.
Absolutely. So, Mumbaikars and many in Maharashtra and many in Gujarat should brace to see the further impact of the storm before it makes landfall. Well, let's now go across to DG NDRF SN Pradhan, who's joining us live now. Mr. Pradhan, welcome to Doordarshan. Give us an overview to begin with of what the NDRF is doing to ensure that minimum damage is caused and evacuations take place timely from the areas that are in the trajectory of the cyclone.
To start with, I think the NDRF has deployed optimally in Gujarat, because that is going to be the highest impact state vis-a-vis the landfall itself and the impact of speeds. Right now, more than 50 teams, if you include SDRF, more than nearly 60 teams are working there, apart from the fire services, the local police, the home guards, etc. As we speak, the teams are engaged in evacuation across the more than 10 districts which are going to be impacted, and probably a couple of lakh of people have already been evacuated to safer places. And I would imagine that by the late afternoon today, probably by 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon, I think the optimal evacuation work would have been completed. As we all know, the landfall is going to take place sometime after 8 p.m. Tonight, between 8 p.m. and 11:30. And we must also take note of the fact that when it makes landfall, it is going to be in the category of a very severe cyclonic storm, with wind speeds of 175 plus, maybe gusting to 185. That is a serious amount of speed, and we have to be prepared for all eventualities. That is why we have done the evacuation first, because lives are at a premium. Lives have to be saved. We will also, of course, encounter the uprooting of trees, the uprooting of telephone lines, electric poles, etc., bending of electric poles. And accordingly, our NDRF teams are equipped, and they will be also standing by and will be able to assist all the agencies, including the road transport, the telecom, the power agencies, and the state administration in general, to restore normalcy as quickly as possible. So all in all, we are prepared. I think we have done the optimal preparation. Let us hope for the best.
Absolutely. We are all hoping for the best. Is there a target of zero casualty that the NDRF is pursuing, and how challenging is that amid the COVID crisis?
Well, it is a challenge, but I think NDRF is made for challenges, and to face challenges is our business. So that is why Honorable Prime Minister took the meeting the day before, and Honorable Home Minister yesterday, also the Honorable Cabinet Secretary yesterday of the National Crisis Management Committee. They were unequivocal in one standard that we all have to maintain, and that is the standard of zero casualty. Only when you aim for zero casualty, you minimize the casualties and make it as close to nil as possible. So that is the effort that we are going to make, and no stone will be left unturned to make that effort. And that is why evacuation is so critical, because if you take people out of harm's way, that is the first effort, first step that has to be taken before you can ensure zero casualty. So this is what is being done right now as we speak, and hopefully we will be able to achieve that aim, or at least optimize on that aim of zero casualty.
Right. In fact, NDRF has a lot of experience in tackling such situations. Is past experience coming in handy?
Yes, of course, and in both the ways, not only to handle cyclones, which we have done quite often now, we have also handled cyclones in COVID times, because let us not forget that by the time we handled Amphan and Nisarg last year, COVID has already come to our doors, and we acted and we operated within the COVID context, and we also had infections in the NDRF itself. But then we could minimize because of our discipline, the protocol that we followed, and in spite of no vaccination last year, which had not arrived yet, we could save our experience will stand us in good stead. But we have, of course, doubled down on that experience, and we have given special suits, special attire to our people, as you can see in the visuals, and they are covered, especially the headgear is specially made, the hands are covered. We also, when we operate, we use gloves, etc. And we use the social distancing protocols, even sanitation protocols, etc. So we are very, very careful about it, because as we can all understand, this is only the beginning of the season of disasters and cyclones and floods. So we have a long way to go. So we are prepared for it, and I think we are optimally prepared.
Mr. Pradhan, are you being able to seamlessly coordinate with other agencies engaged in relief and rescue operations in the respective states which either have been affected or are likely to be even more affected going forward? Also, are you engaged in awareness drive to make locals aware about the situation and the precautions that they need to take?
Well, I can tell you this with a great amount of confidence, that being in the thick of disaster response mechanism in the country, I think India has come a long way in terms of the coordination, the seamless coordination between states, center, all the central agencies, the ministries, the central government, all the disaster response institutional mechanisms. They operate like a well-oiled machine. And I think we should all be proud of this. We are a very populous country. We face multitude of disasters, but we have not got the words for it. So I think we all have to at least silently applaud the coordination aspect of the disaster response, whether it is the states, whether it is all the agencies involved, the district administration, the local administration, and even the volunteers. Let us not take away credit from that, the volunteers who are community volunteers. So yes, I think the seamless coordination is a reality which is here to stay, and which is going to add to the strength of India in terms of disaster response. As far as the COVID issues are concerned, yes, we are finding that even issues like oxygen transportation and relocation from makeshift hospitals have all been taken care of in very close coordination with each other. And let me remind you that when the Honorable Home Minister took the meeting yesterday, he also was speaking directly to the Chief Ministers of Gujarat and Maharashtra. And they were all on the same page as to what is to be done in a very difficult scenario where we are facing a double challenge of COVID and cyclone together. Unless there is coordination, nothing can be achieved. And I think India offers a bright example to its own population, to its own citizens, and as well as to the world.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan, for having joined us with those inputs. We've heard and seen tales of heroism from the NDRF personnel, and we hope NDRF this time too would do its best to minimize damage. Well, let's go back to our correspondents. Tapas and Shishir are joining us. Shishir, you were telling us about how the Mumbai airport was closed and the other kind of precautions that are being taken, and that train movement hasn't been fully suspended. So tell us more about the situation as it unravels there.
Well, absolutely, Munmun, if you look at the situation, Mumbai also witnessing COVID, situation at one hand. That's what even we've heard from the NDRF personnel, that they've said that they've taken extra precautions, wherever the numbers are quite high. And especially the cyclonic areas, if you look at the western areas of Maharashtra, basically the Mumbai, Thane, Palghar region, the Sindhudurga and Ratnagiri districts, these are the now areas where we've seen here that maximum numbers of COVID positive patients here. Well, keeping in mind the cyclone situation here, the local administration have already shifted the COVID positive patient to a permanent structure, because most of the jumbo COVID facility in Mumbai have been created near the coastline areas, and that's the reason the biggest jumbo COVID center of Maharashtra, which is situated in Mumbai, that is Bandra Kurla complex. The other one is at the Dahisar, and the other one is at Mulund. So these three are major jumbo COVID center which have been the government have made here. But most of these patients have been shifted to the permanent structure, to the permanent hospital, looking at this current condition, in Mumbai. As far as the other region, districts are concerned, the Ratnagiri and of course the Raigad districts are concerned, most of the people, especially residing near the coastline areas, thousands of people so far have been shifted to a safe places, with the help of the district authority here. Well, as far as the fishermen is concerned, because since last couple of days, fishermen have already told not to go in deep sea, and that's the reason we have seen most of the boats of the fishermen have already been parked near the coastal line areas here. But now the worrying factor is this gusty wind here, because it's create more damage to their boats, and that's why even the fisherman is worried at this point in time. Well, if you look at the situation given by the IMD has already given the orange alert to Mumbai and the adjoining area of Maharashtra. And that's the reason, as far as the normal traffic is concerned, or the movement of vehicle is concerned, the local authority have already warned people that not venture out from their home if it is not required. And that's what, if you look at the situation, is changing, minute by minute. At once in the morning, we have seen here that the gusty winds. Later on, the heavy, the intermittent rains have started later on immediately after that. So obviously the situation will continue for the next 1 or 2 hours. That's what the IMD has predicted. And keeping that in mind, even the Mumbai Airport Authority and the international AIA have also decided that to suspend the flight operation from Mumbai for the next few hours here. As far as the other important arrangements are concerned, the local administration especially had a meeting with the Chief Minister yesterday. Even yesterday, the Union Home Minister have briefed Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray about what are the do's and don'ts to be required here. And whichever help is state is required, the center will provide it immediately. And that's the reason, if you look at since morning, we have seen here the most of the NDRF team, nearly 3 teams have been deployed in Mumbai, and the rest of the teams have been put on standby mode whenever required to shift to the places here. So obviously coordination between state and center is quite important, and that's what both the government is looking forward.
Right, Tapas, since we know that Gujarat coast is going to be in the eye of the storm, what are the warnings that the Met Department have issued for Gujarat? There too have fishermen been asked not to venture into the sea?
In fact, the whole of the western coast, from Konkan to earlier from Kerala till Gujarat, all the fishermen activities has been suspended from 14th onwards, and they have been told not to venture out. In fact, most of the fishermen villages that are there situated in the coastal areas have been evacuated. The idea is to take out people who are staying in the kachra houses or the thatch houses and take them to a safer house, safer places, some places where it is safe to be there. Remember, during this particular cyclone, there are 2 major things that people faces after the cyclone gets over. The first is the paucity of food, and the second is water. These are the 2 major things that happen. But because of the storm surge during the cyclone, the water from the sea gets inside the paddy field, and also has a potential to impact the fresh water process of the places. So it is imperative that that the local administration, along with the NDRF, I'm sure they are taking due diligence of this particular point, because in every cyclone and every point, every place where there is a cyclone, the chances, the threat. These are the 2 major important things that they try to take note of. So the first is to evacuate people to safer places, to places which will not break down during the cyclone, and also to provide them with the food and water, because after the cyclone gets over, what people generally tend to see is the outbreak of certain diseases born out of food along with water. So these are some of the major things that people will be, the NDRF, the state missionary, state disaster management group will be taking a close look
Right.
at. Apart from that, what is very important is that the gale speed, as you know, as Shishi was talking earlier, Mumbai Worli has received a lot of rainfall activity. In fact, it is expected that by the end of the day, by evening, 200 centimeter of rainfall activity can be expected from there. Also, we've been told that in places like Junagadh, Gir, Bhavnagar, and district adjoining
Absolutely.
south and coastal areas, there will be a massive,
Right, Tapas. So heavy rainfall has already taken place along the trajectory of the cyclone, and heavy rain. Besides that, heavy winds are also flowing. Thank you so much, Tapas, as well as Shishir, for having joined us with those updates. Let's now move on to a developing story. The first batch of anti-COVID drug 2-DG developed by the DRDO was released today by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh along with Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan. Defence Minister handed over the anti-COVID drug 2-DG to Union Health Minister, and the Health Minister handed over the drug to Delhi's AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria. An anti-COVID-19 therapeutic application of the drug 2-deoxy-D-glucose, also known as 2-DG, has been developed by DRDO's Institute of Nuclear Medicine and Allied Sciences in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's laboratories in Hyderabad. The clinical trials of the drug 2-deoxy-D-glucose show that it helps in faster recovery of hospitalized patients and reduces supplemental oxygen dependence. Speaking on the occasion, Defence Minister said that this drug brings in new hope.
ड्रग जिसका यह इजाद हुआ है, यह आशा और उम्मीद की एक नई किरण लेकर आया है। यानी हमारे देश के सामने एक बड़ा से बड़ा चैलेंज है, तो हमारे वैज्ञानिकों के अंदर वह क्षमता है, वह ताकत है कि उसका मुकाबला वह कर सकते हैं। और जो यह ड्रग का इजाद किया गया है, मैं समझता हूं कि हमारे देश के वैज्ञानिकों की एक जो साइंटिफिक कैपेबिलिटी है, उसकी भी एक मिसाल है, उसका भी एक उदाहरण है।
Rajnath Singh further said that Army has contributed significantly as they opened their hospitals for civilians.
मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल्स में भी आपको जानकर खुशी हुई होगी, समाचार पत्रों में आपने पढ़ा होगा कि यह भी व्यवस्था कर दी गई है कि सिविलियंस का भी वहां पर इलाज हो सकता है। और मेरी जानकारी है कि कई मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल जहां पर पहले सिविलियंस का इलाज नहीं होता था, और मिलिट्री हॉस्पिटल में बहुत अच्छी तरह उन सिविलियंस का भी इलाज हो रहा है। लेकिन यह सब कुछ जो हमारी आर्म फोर्सेस के द्वारा किया जा रहा है, इस चैलेंज को मीट आउट करने के लिए, लेकिन साथ ही साथ सीमा पर से हमारा ध्यान हटा नहीं है। सीमा पर जो हमारी तैयारियां हैं, वो तैयारियां यथावत हमारी हैं, हम बराबर हमारी नजर उसके ऊपर भी रहती है, और इस काम को भी हम साथ ही साथ कर रहे हैं।
Speaking on the occasion, Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan said that the new anti-COVID drug 2-DG is one of its kind indigenously developed research-based drug which will reduce recovery time and oxygen dependency.
भारत के वैज्ञानिकों के द्वारा DRDO के सहयोग से हमारे आदरणीय राजनाथ सिंह जी के नेतृत्व में ये शायद हमारी पहली इंडिजिनस रिसर्च के आउटकम के तहत दवा है जो सीधे सीधे कोविड के वायरस के प्रकोप को पूरे वैज्ञानिक दृष्टिकोण से कम करने का पूरा पोटेंशियल रखती है।
The Union Minister also congratulated DRDO and its scientists while adding that under PM Narendra Modi's leadership, DRDO has played an important role in the fight against the COVID pandemic.
इस अवसर पर मैं DRDO को और उसके सभी वैज्ञानिकों को इस बात के लिए धन्यवाद करना चाहता हूँ, बधाई देना चाहता हूँ, क्योंकि जब कोविड के खिलाफ लड़ाई शुरू हुई पिछले वर्ष, तो हमने देखा कि प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में पूरी सरकार जो है होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट और होल ऑफ सोसाइटी अप्रोच के साथ उसने लड़ना शुरू किया और उस समय से लेकर आज तक DRDO ने उसमें अग्रणी भूमिका निभाई दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट के अंदर।
Let's now move on to national crime. Let's take a look now at the latest on the COVID-19 cases in the country. In an encouraging development, daily new COVID cases being registered in India are now less than 3 lakh after 26 days. 2,81,386 new cases were registered in the last 24 hours. A declining trend in the weekly positivity rate is also observed, which stands at 18.17% today. State-wise, number of districts with higher positivity rate in Karnataka showing most number of districts, that is 27 with more than 20% positivity rate, and Madhya Pradesh consisting highest number of districts, that is 38 with more than 10% positivity rate. India's cumulative recoveries have reached 2,11,74,076 today. The national recovery rate is 84.81%. 3,78,741 recoveries were registered in the last 24 hours. Also, 24-hour recoveries have outnumbered the daily new COVID cases for the 6th time in the last 7 days and consistently in the last 4 days. 10 states account for 71.35% of the new recoveries. India's total active caseload has decreased to 35,16,997. It now comprises 14.09% of the country's total positive cases. A net decline of 1,01,461 cases has been recorded in active caseload in the last 24 hours. 10 states cumulatively account for 75.04% of India's total active cases. Union Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan presided over the 26th Group of Ministers meeting on COVID-19 situation today. He said that the vaccination drive has been largely effective and stressed that the difference in new cases in the past 24 hours and those who've recovered in 24 hours is now down to almost 1 lakh. He added that in the past few days, the number of active cases are less than last week.
On 8th May, we had just over 4 lakh new cases in the last 24 hours, and at that time, almost in a row for 4 continuous days we had over 4 lakh cases. Today, on 17th May, in the last 24 hours we have seen 2,81,386 cases in the country.
The minister also highlighted that after 26 days, the cases are less than 3 lakh.
The number of recovered cases in the last 24 hours were 3,18,609, and today this number has risen to 3,78,741. Right now, just to keep you updated, today we have 35,16,997 active cases in the country. And for the first time after almost 26 days, we have seen cases less than 3 lakhs.
The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country stands at 18,29,26,460 as on the 121st day of the vaccination drive, that is 16th May. A total of 6,91,211 vaccine doses were given on that day. India continues to put up a strong fight against COVID-19. The country continues its mass-scale COVID-19 testing drive. As per the Indian Council of Medical Research, 15,73,515 samples were tested on the 16th of May, taking the cumulative total to 31,64,23,658. The heavy lift transport fleet of Air Force has been airlifting empty cryogenic oxygen tankers to their filling stations in India since the 22nd of April so that they may be filled and transported to their destinations by road or rail. The same activity is now being undertaken at international destinations, and IL-76 aircraft of the Air Force has airlifted 3 empty cryogenic containers from Jamnagar to Al Maktoum in Dubai. Indian Oil Corporation has coordinated for these containers, which will be filled up with liquid medical oxygen at Dubai and brought back by ship to India. The airlift will reduce the timelines of transportation of empty containers. Indian Air Force has set up a 100-bed COVID healthcare at its Jalahalli East campus in Bengaluru. The Indian Air Force is working in close coordination with the state government and facilitating the COVID treatment at the centre to the civilians as well. The centre is being equipped with 50 oxygenated beds, 40 HDU beds and 10 ICU beds, including 5 ventilators, and will be operational soon. Karnataka's Health and Medical Education Minister Dr. K. Sudhakar visited the COVID Healthcare Centre and expressed satisfaction at the facility and thanked the Indian Air Force. Indian Railways continues to deliver a much-needed aid to the country amid this testing time of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the series, another Oxygen Express train arrived in Bareilly this morning. The train originated from Bokaro carrying 49.7 metric tons of oxygen. The CBI has today arrested 4 ministers of the Trinamool Congress government in West Bengal in a case relating to the Narda sting operation. CBI had registered the instant case on 16th April 2017 on the orders of the Calcutta High Court. It was alleged that when public servants were caught on camera while receiving illegal gratification from the sting operator, after investigation, prosecution sanction was sought against the concerned public servants, and the same has been received from the competent authority on 7th May this year. Sanction for one more accused, the then SP, was received and he was earlier arrested. Presently, he is on bail. Charge sheets against the 5 accused whom prosecution sanction received is being submitted. Investigation is on. Addressing the media in Kolkata, Chief Information Officer of the CBI said that the arrests were made in a case related to Narda sting operation, and the agency had registered an instant case on the 16th of April 2017 on the orders of the Calcutta High Court.
CBI has today arrested 4 then ministers of Government of West Bengal in a case related to Narda sting operation. CBI had registered the instant case on 16th April 2017 on the orders of Honorable Kolkata High Court. It was alleged that the then public servants were caught on camera while receiving illegal gratification. Charge sheets against the 5 accused persons whom prosecution sanction has been received is being submitted. Further investigation in the case is continuing.
Trinamool Congress Chief Mamata Banerjee also reached CBI office this morning. So 4 Trinamool Congress leaders who were ministers in the previous government of Mamata Banerjee, and among those 4, 2 are currently also ministers in the Mamata Banerjee government. They have been arrested today. On that, we are being joined by Rajiv Bhattacharya, our correspondent from Kolkata. I understand, Rajiv, if you are with us, what's the latest after the arrest? Okay, we'll try and go across to Rajiv later. But for now, we'll move on. In Jammu and Kashmir, 2 terrorists have been killed in the ongoing encounter at Kanmo area of Srinagar. The incident took place in the wee hours today when a gunfight broke between terrorists and security forces in Kanmo area on Srinagar's outskirts. Security forces have cordoned off the area and search operations are underway. Portals of Kedarnath temple opened today at 5 a.m. following a religious ceremony. Devotees could not attend the opening ceremony, but arrangements were made for them to have online darshan. Precautions were taken in view of the COVID-19 pandemic surge. Due to the suspension of the Char Dham Yatra, devotees will be able to visit all 4 dhams, including Badrinath and Kedarnath, though virtually. Devotees can have online darshan. Our correspondent Rajiv Bhattacharya is with us. Rajiv, take us through the developments as they panned out from this morning, leading to the arrest of 4 Trinamool Congress leaders, 2 of whom are still ministers in the new Mamata Banerjee government.
One MLA and one former minister and MLA who is right now not with any political party were picked up by the CBI for questioning. They were brought to the CBI headquarters at Nizam Palace in Kolkata, and after about 4 hours of questioning, they were detained. They were arrested, and they were supposed to be produced in court today, but a large number of Trinamool Congress supporters, including Trinamool Congress Supreme and the Chief Minister of the State, Mamata Banerjee, are right now outside the CBI office, waiting for the four persons to come out, and if and when they come out, it's going to be a law and order problem right now, and they have to be taken to court. But of course, we're also hearing that the hearing could be held virtually. We don't know really how it's going to pan out at the end, but they were arrested after being detained this morning.
Rajiv, I understand that there are 2 versions emerging on the arrest. While the governor, we understand, had given sanction to prosecute all of them, and that was given much earlier during the previous Mamata Banerjee government. But there is another version coming in from the Trinamool Congress leaders, isn't it?
Jurisdiction of the MLAs. In fact, the CBI should have sought permission from the Speaker of the House to prosecute sitting MLAs. And another version that has been put out by the Trinamool Congress is that the CBI sought permission on the 9th of May, whereas these MLAs were sworn in on the 10th. So technically speaking, they come under the Speaker's jurisdiction. But of course, the CBI has said that there was a...
Right, Rajiv, we are facing audio disturbance. We'll take this forward later. Thank you for now for joining us. Well, in Midday Prime, it's time for news and updates from the world of business. My colleague Tanvi joins us with Business Prime.
Thank you, Munmun. We'll start our Business Prime segment with WPI inflation figures. Well, wholesale price-based inflation, WPI, rose to an all-time high of 10.49% in April 2021, year-on-year, due to a rise in prices of crude oil and manufactured products. The low base in April last year also led to the spike. On a month-on-month basis, wholesale inflation rose 3.1% from 7.39% in March. The Commerce Ministry data released today showed that wholesale inflation in food articles in April was 4.92%, as prices of protein-rich items like eggs, meat and fish hardened. Inflation in the fuel and power basket was 20.94% in April, while in manufactured goods it was 9.01%. Wholesale inflation has now risen for the 4th straight month. Shifting our attention to the domestic stock markets, well, the Sensex and the Nifty have made robust gains on Monday. So after a strong opening, the Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange remained firm and had spurted 715 points or 1.5% to 49,448 a short while ago. The Nifty at the National Stock Exchange had jumped 205 points or 1.4% to 14,883. In the broader market, both the BSE mid-cap and the small-cap indices had added 1.4%. The top index gainers today are SBI, IndusInd Bank, ICICI Bank, Axis Bank and HDFC Bank, with gains of between 3.1 and 5.5%. If you talk about the top index losers, they are Larsen & Toubro, Bharti Airtel, Sun Pharma, Power Grid Corporation and NTPC, with losses of between 0.6 and 2.2%. Elsewhere in Asia, key stock markets were mixed as Chinese retail sales missed expectations and Singapore moved to close schools to fight a coronavirus outbreak there, while more evidence of global inflation pressures helped gold to a 3-month peak there. So MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan moved on either side of flat, just above a 4-month low hit last week. Chinese blue chips proved more resilient and had gained 1.8%, but Japan's Nikkei lost 0.9% over worries of their slow pace of the domestic vaccination drive. Back home at the interbank foreign exchange market, the rupee had gained 5 paise against the dollar in early trade on Monday, supported by a rising stock market. Later, the rupee remained firm and had appreciated 6 paise to 73 rupees 22 paise against the dollar a short while ago. At the multi-commodity exchange, gold had strengthened 351 rupees to 48,027 rupees per 10 grams. Silver had surged 964 rupees to 72,049 rupees per kilo. And finally, global crude oil prices were little moved on Monday after the recovery of a major US pipeline network eased concerns over supply through, though fresh restrictions in Asia amid surging COVID-19 cases weighed on sentiment. So Brent crude oil rose just 3 cents to $68.74 a barrel, and US crude was up 8 cents at $65.45 a barrel. So with that, we wind our segment of Business Prime. Back to you, Munmun.
Thanks, Tanvi, for that. Now let's take a look at what's making news across the globe. India has expressed deep concern at the spread of violence in West Bank and Gaza and urged both sides to show extreme restraint. India's ambassador to the United Nations, T.S. Tirumurthy, called for resuming direct dialogue and creating conducive conditions for it, emphasizing that immediate de-escalation is the need of the hour.
We reiterate our strong condemnation of all acts of violence, provocation, incitement, and destruction. Immediate de-escalation is the need of the hour, so as to arrest any further slide towards the brink. We urge both sides to show extreme restraint, desist from actions that exacerbate tensions, and refrain from attempts to unilaterally change the existing status quo, including in East Jerusalem and its neighborhood.
Speaking at the United Nations Security Council session on the ongoing Israel-Palestine escalating situation, India's ambassador T.S. Tirumurthy reiterated India's strong support to the just Palestinian cause and its unwavering commitment to the two-state solution at the UNSC.
We support the diplomatic efforts of the Quartet and other members of the international community, the countries in the region in particular, to calm the situation and put an end to the ongoing violence and seek to achieve durable peace. These incidents have once again underscored the need for immediate resumption of dialogue between Israel and Palestinian authorities. The absence of direct and meaningful negotiations between the parties is widening the trust deficit between the parties. This will only increase the chances for similar escalation in the future. We believe that every effort should be made to create conducive conditions for resumption of talks between Israel and Palestine. In conclusion, I reiterate India's strong support to the just Palestinian cause and its unwavering commitment to the two-state solution.
The tensions between Israel and Palestine have refused to die down as the hostilities have entered into the second week. The night skies over Gaza were lit up as militants launched rockets at the southern Israeli cities of Beersheba and Ashkelon. Israeli planes also launched dozens of airstrikes. The Israeli military said a Hamas intelligence complex was among the targets. Over the last few hours, Israel's Air Force fighter jets and aircraft struck 9 residences belonging to Hamas terror organization, high-ranking commanders in the Gaza Strip. The residences that were struck were used as terror infrastructure, as per Israel. Some of the residences were used to store weapons. The residence of Beit Hanon, a battalion commander, and residence of a company commander in the Sabara battalion and Shati battalion are among the Hamas terror organization commanders' residences that were struck. The rocket attacks and violence have so far killed over 200 people in Gaza, including 58 children and 34 women, while 10 people, including 2 children, have been killed in Israel. Meanwhile, protests continued in various cities of the world demanding the end to violence. Thousands of Jordanians, most of them of Palestine origin, took to the streets of the capital Amman on Sunday. The protesters demanded the Kingdom of Jordan to scrap its peace deal with Israel. And it's time for stories from the world of sports. My colleague Ashok joins us with Sports Prime.
Thank you, Munmun. Porto will host the May 29th Champions League final between Manchester City and their Premier League rival Chelsea. British tourists will be able to visit Portugal from today after Lisbon lifted restrictions introduced in January to check the spread of COVID-19. Lisbon's move came after London had placed Portugal on its green list of countries to visit without having to self-isolation on returning home. Thousands of English football fans can be expected to descend on the venues. Although governing body UEFA has confirmed that up to 6,000 tickets will be made available to each club. Barcelona saw their hopes of winning La Liga extinguished as they were beaten 1-2 at home by Celta Vigo on Sunday. Barcelona were dominant in the first half and deservedly took the lead through Lionel Messi after 27th minute in what it could be the Messi's final game at the Nou Camp, given his unresolved contractual situation. Barcelona are third in 76 points, 4 behind Real Madrid in second with 1 game remaining and 2 ahead of Sevilla in fourth. More than 80% of Japanese opposing hosting the virus-postponed Olympics this year. The new poll published Monday showed with just under 10 weeks until the Tokyo Games. The latest survey comes after Japan expanded a coronavirus state of emergency Friday as the nation battles a fourth wave of virus infections. The surge has put pressure on the country's healthcare system, with medical professionals repeatedly warning about shortages and burnout. Moving to tennis, Rafael Nadal has certainly sent a warning notice to the rest of the men's singles field with an emphatic display of tennis against world number 1 Novak Djokovic in the final of Italian Open to win his 10th crown in Rome on Sunday. Nadal defeated the top seed 7-5, 1-6, 3-6-3 to secure his first title on clay since last year's French Open. With the win on Sunday, Nadal also equaled Djokovic's record for the most number of Masters titles. The two gladiators of the sport have 36 Masters titles each, while Roger Federer is in the third spot with 28th win. So that's all in Sports Prime. Namaskar.
Thanks, Ashok, for that. And now it's time for our next segment, Life Prime. Andrea Meza from Mexico was crowned the 69th Miss Universe in an elaborate event that took place at the Seminole Hard Rock Hollywood Hotel in United States, Florida. The 26-year-old model scripted history as she became only the third Mexican woman to be crowned Miss Universe. The Mexican model competed against 73 women from various countries for the 2020 title. She won the title after defeating her strongest competitor, Miss Brazil, Julia Gama, who became the runner-up, while Miss Peru secured the third position. Andrea Meza was presented the crown by her predecessor and Miss Universe 2019 from South Africa.
Congratulations to Andrea Meza. Take your first walk as Miss Universe.
And with that, we come to the close of this edition of Midday Prime. Remember to keep your masks on outdoors and indoors, especially with people around. Thanks for watching.